Hey therapists, it's Matt Everhart with Framework Family Counseling, and today we're going to talk about how we can help stamp out the stigma of mental health. Let's check it out. Alright, hey, today I want to talk about stigma, and that is specifically stigma through diagnostics and diagnoses. And not necessarily the stigma that we always hear about, right? The stigma that our clients feel and that they go through and that we kind of put on ourselves and society kind of fuels that makes things uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about stigma as a concept as much as I want to talk about stigma from our perspective as the clinician, as the therapist, as the counselor. As helpers, we need to recognize how we can be the first to help prevent that stigma. And I'm here to propose a way to do that. One thing I've noticed over the years is that the diagnosis conversation does not always happen or not consistently happen in a very upfront, normalizing way. To me, that causes disruption, right? There's that chance for the client to feel stigmatized in finding a diagnosis later and not fully understanding it. There's the fact that we're taking away some client autonomy and participation by not having this straightforward conversation and truly informing them of what we're doing when we use diagnoses. Now, whether we use diagnoses to fulfill insurance reimbursements or whether it's an agency policy or whether we don't necessarily use them. Maybe they're uncomfortable for us and we're in private practice and so we don't have to use diagnoses in the same way. In any case, I think we need to communicate directly with our clients about what they're for, how they work, in a way that's simple and understandable. I work with a lot of young kids, right? I want them to also understand what's going on when we say something like diagnosis. Doesn't mean you're dying, that you're broken, that you've done something horribly wrong. Of course not. It's just something that we use as a tool, and that's how we need to present it. So being the creative therapists and healers and helpers that we are, I hope that you can take some of the information I'll present and put a spin on it, make it adaptable to the clients that you serve specifically. And I hope this, at the very least, creates something that we're more conscious of. Maybe something that we put into our introductory communication, our first session, bringing in and building a therapeutic alliance around this kind of interaction, because I feel it's so, so important. All right, so when I'm working with a client, I'll typically tell them, I'm going to use a tool called a diagnosis. Have you ever heard of a diagnosis? And maybe they have, and maybe they have some ideas about it. Great. Good thing to talk about. Maybe they've never heard about it, right? So a diagnosis is just a name for something that you're going through. It's something that we use as a tool to help us identify exactly what it is that we can help you improve. That's why you've come in here today, right? So when you go to the doctor, you tell the doctor all the things that you're going through. You say, Doc, I've got a headache, I've got a fever, I've got this phlegmy cough and this runny nose and whatever. And the doctor says, you have the flu. And that's your diagnosis right there. He has named what you have because he knows that with that name of those symptoms, there's treatments for that and they work in a very consistent way for a very broad range of people. And of course, a good doctor will use his knowledge and his relationship with you to get more and more specific as to exactly what will benefit you in terms of treatment or healing or whatever. Some diagnoses are very short-term. For example, you might need an antibiotic and you get your medicine and you're healed in a week or two. And some illnesses are chronic. You might deal with something long-term that you go to treatment for or take medication for regularly for years or your whole life. It's the same thing with mental and behavioral health. A big difference that you should know is that instead of using just physical symptoms, which we do use, we use things like behaviors, the way we act, we use thoughts, and we use feelings too. Now, a lot of that is observed. Maybe we make an assessment and we see something and we take note of that. Most of it, frankly, happens to come from you, the client, and how you present that information to us, or oftentimes from the people around you in your life, like your family or your teacher or coaches or friends who also see a change. And so we take all of these symptoms and we give it a name so that just like the doctor a minute ago, we can formulate the best most reliable treatment structure for you, because we know that that will work in a consistent way for a broad range of people. And when we add those specific things that are uniquely you to the way we interact with you and the way we design our treatment and our interventions, that way we are going to get you the most progress the quickest, and it will be the longest lasting. So let's say you have symptoms like, therapist, I'm sad all the time, and I don't eat or sleep the way I used to, and I don't like to do the things that I used to do, and sometimes I hurt myself, or I think I just want to die. We might say that's major depressive disorder, or some form of a depressive disorder. Another buzzword that you really probably should have a very face-to-face conversation about. Disorder doesn't mean you're broken and we need to get rid of you because you're no good. Disorder means that you've had these things going on in your life and they're causing you problems, plain and simple. You might think really fast all the time, and you might love that. It might not cause you any problems at all. Great. I wouldn't give you a diagnosis because I don't have a problem to name. But if those racing thoughts are keeping you up at night and preventing you from doing well in school, and you want them to go away, and you've tried everything you can think of to make them stop, and they won't, and they're torturing you, then it would be appropriate to say this is a disorder. This is causing disorder in your life. It's causing problems. Okay? So hopefully we can all formulate some method, like I just presented, of having a direct conversation. I've even gone oftentimes as far as showing my small DSM to a client. And I've had mentors or colleagues say like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because then they might see something in there, or they might hear the word disorder, and that's going to be really hard. Well, yeah, it is going to be really hard if they have an unclear understanding of what that means. And it's our job to prevent that. By doing something like this, we're going to give them comfort, we're going to build a therapeutic alliance, we're going to create the autonomy and the self-determination that are the pillars of everything that we do with the people we serve. So, hopefully this was valuable for you. It's something that I've been doing for a while now, and I find it incredibly valuable to that relationship building in the beginning. And that's with adults, that's especially with parents who are so worried about their young kids. That's with young kids, because they need to know what's going on too. Even if they can only grasp maybe a tiny fraction of it, they need to know that, this is how we work. We're going to see what's going wrong, what you've been expressing to us. We're going to give it a name, and based on that name, we'll have the utility of the treatment processes that we've trained in to fit exactly the right modalities to your needs, and to adjust it in a very specific client-centered way that's going to make it successful. So let's start stamping out the stigma right now as the therapist, and really start having this conversation in a direct way early on, because it can be very empowering, and that's what this mental health thing needs to become. It needs to become empowering. We need to get far from this boys don't cry, crying's bad attitude that society's kind of had for a very long time at large. I mean, that's a generalization, I get that. And we need to move to this self-acceptance and acceptance of others, and building on the self-knowledge that we want to bring to people. Because that's going to help everyone find healing. And maybe one day we'll all be out of a job because everyone will be so ingrained in their own emotions and the emotions of others, and the empathy will just be swirling around the room. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? So yeah, let's help put ourselves out of work. Let's help people take control of their lives, and let's stamp out the stigma together. Thanks so much. Hope you all have a great day. See ya.